There we go. Sorry, Kyle. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Great. Good morning.
So, Kyle Dodd, Environmental Health Manager, providing an update on our COVID emergency response this morning. So there isn't a whole lot of new information this week. So we have no new cases in the county since my report last week. Statewide, the rates of new positives per day continue to decline as well. Statewide, we have 71,371 cases. And locally, we have provided 2,978 tests, both our emergency response group and our local providers. We added several more today during a testing event. Some highlights from this week, we are finalizing a training plan. We have reassigned some staff internally to provide a more robust team of contact tracers. This has been in the works for quite a long time, but that is now being implemented this week and will start September 1st after training is completed. As I mentioned, our testing team was out today. They were testing at the fairgrounds and tested roughly 24 people. Many of those were county staff that were identified as forward-facing or routinely working with the public, and that was the second round of testing for those county staff. We're still working to expand our testing capability, working with Northwest Labs, so again to take over a lot of that administrative work as far as scheduling and billing and notifying individuals of their test results, which continues to be a pretty big burden for our team. Also, over the last week, a lot of work is ongoing with schools as they work through their reopening plans. And as you all know, last week I reported that our health officer put out a recommendation for all schools that they start their school year this fall using distance learning and not in person. We have heard that some schools have chosen to open in person, and our team is working with them, providing comments on their Safe Start plan as requested by the schools. The last thing that I'll report out before I switch over to my dashboards here is, as Council Member Stevens indicated, we had a request on Friday from Washington Association of Counties to submit an updated CARES Act spending plan by today, and thanks to the help of Tara leading that effort, we will meet that deadline today, and clarified with them that they're just looking for the Relief for Local Governments grant. There are several different CARES Act streams that have reached the county, and we've clarified what they're asking for, so we will meet that goal today. Jumping over to the dashboard, so this is the State Department of Health dashboard. Again, I just wanted to continue to show the status of new cases statewide. So the last confirmed case count, 7-day rolling average, is below 500, down to 485, and that's down from a peak on July 23rd, about a month ago, of 803 new cases per day on a 7-day rolling average. So again, I think it's helpful to see this epi curve and the trend line, which continues to decrease. Jumping over to the DOH dashboard, you can see, again, statewide, all the counties by their phase and how we are matching up as a state with the 5 designated key metrics. The state continues to, as a whole, not meet the first 3 metrics around new cases in the prior 2 weeks per 100,000 population, number of individuals tested for each new case over the prior week, and percent of individuals tested positive during the past week. We as county are continuing to meet all those goals, again, as the metrics identified by the state show there. So those are my highlights for this week. I am open to answer any questions.
Kyle, this is Watson. Can you remind us as to when the governor's freeze on moving forward ends?
So there has been no talk of rolling back that freeze on moving between phases. I haven't heard any talk of that over the last several weeks. So
what's the end date of the freeze?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay, well, I couldn't remember either, so that's why I asked.
I think it's been extended a couple times, and again, I'm just maintaining situational awareness with the governor's office and their notices, and waiting for talk of that to commence, and then we'll plug back into that.
Okay.
With the last extension, this is Jamie. I thought it was there wasn't a date on it.
Oh, it was indefinite, huh? Okay.
It was indefinite.
Okay, thank you. I get that's why I couldn't remember the date.
Kyle, real quick, what was the last? How long has it been since we've had a positive case in the county?
A week.
Our last positive was, yes, around, it was August 15th.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. Is there anything else for Kyle?
Nope.
Mark, do you have anything you'd like to bring forward, or?
No, I think Kyle covered it well.
All righty. Well, is there anything else from staff regarding COVID-19? Again, I would like to, on behalf of council, thank all of you for the hard work, especially at this point in time, the contact tracing team and the work that they've done, but really all of the health department, Ellen, Kyle, Mark, Dr. James, Brendan, all the nursing staff. So thank you very much for your continued work to keep our community safe. Thank you very much. Our next item is a discussion, rental assistance programs, new community development block grants, the CDBG rental eviction grant with Greg Winter, Executive Director of the Opportunity Council, and Debbie Patton, Director of Community Services with the Opportunity Council. Greg, are you on the phone?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for inviting us today. We were asked to show up and just describe some of the housing assistance that's available to San Juan County residents, and I'm kind of here just for show, but I brought our expert, Debbie Payton, who's director of our community services department, and in Debbie's department is where most of our housing assistance programs are headquartered. And as I think you're all aware, we couldn't provide these services without the strong collaboration and partnership of the 3 resource centers on Lopez, Orcas, and San Juan Islands. As we have for many years, these new programs, we're working in partnership with them. And I'm going to ask Debbie if she would just kind of outline what's available, and then be open to any questions that you have.
Greg, before you pass it over to Debbie, would you, for those who may be watching at home who aren't familiar with the Opportunity Council, if you wouldn't mind just giving a quick rundown of who you are and what the Opportunity Council is and the scope of work that the Opportunity Council does for the region and for this county?
Yeah, absolutely, Rick. Thanks for that. I'll be brief. We're a fairly complex organization, but we're a community action agency. We're one of 30 organizations in the state that are focused on helping communities with needs that are expressed both systemically and at the household level. And our focus areas are financial stability, housing stability, whole person health, social justice, and school and work readiness. And our primary territory, the region that we cover, are Whatcom Island and San Juan counties, although we do provide some services in Snohomish and Skagit counties as well. And as I mentioned, in San Juan County, much of the work that we do is in partnership with the three resource centers, especially in the areas of housing assistance, energy assistance, and low-income household weatherization and home repair. So that's kind of my nutshell sketch.
Great, thank you, and also thank you to the Opportunity Council for the purchase of the apartment building in Friday Harbor and San Juan Island to keep it permanently affordable. So thank you.
Yeah, very good. And also, I'd just like to acknowledge the support that we get from both Rick Hughes and Mark Tompkins, who are on our board, and Mark is actually our board president as of this year. So thank you too for your support. Debbie, take it away.
Sure. I was going to provide an update on a couple of new rent assistance sources coming available for San Juan County. So Greg, please chime in at the end if there's something I missed that was meant to be presented today. Both of these sources are coming through the Federal CARES Act, running through the Department of Commerce, then to Opportunity Council, then out to San Juan County. The first is the Eviction Rent Assistance Program, or ERAP, and that's the largest news source, and that's going to be around 110,000 in direct rent assistance resources for the county. The eligibility for ERAP is income limit of 50% AMI or below, and then there's also some other criteria that a household has to screen into. It can be up to 3 months of rent payments in any combination of arrears, current rent, or future rent, and it can go back to pay rent from March 2020 going forward, and the program will run through December 2020, so it's a pretty quick start and stop to make sure these funds get out to the community. Like Greg said, we are working closely, we're subcontracting with the three resource centers to help us do the outreach, reach marginalized communities, and facilitate people getting connected to the service. The program goals for ERAP is to prevent evictions and to target the resources to those most likely to become homeless after eviction. Also to target the resources to people who are most likely to suffer severe health consequences as a result of eviction. And ERAP is really designed to promote equity around who is served, focusing on access for historically underserved populations and also for those who are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. Let's see, and the other new source coming to San Juan County is going to be the Emergency Solutions Grant, also federal funds. This will be around $46,000, and it can be used in a rapid rehousing model or for eviction prevention, so it can be used for households who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. And this will extend out through June 2022, so much longer time frame, and we don't anticipate it will last that long, but there's not quite the rush to get it out immediately. So, yeah, open to any questions.
I think one, Debbie, correct me if I'm wrong, there is, one other relatively small program, and I mentioned this partly because on the agenda the community development block grant is mentioned, and so we did start this. I mean, kind of the first new rent assistance was through a community development block grant program that's managed by Whatcom County and then administered by Opportunity Council for the 3 counties I mentioned earlier. And so that program is still in play, and similarly, it can provide up to 3 months of rental assistance, and it's got a time window that's a little bit longer than this CARES Act funding. So we would probably want to use the CARES Act dollars before we would use these CDBG dollars, since we have more time.
Yes, we've been up and running with that one since about April, and then we'll kind of move into the CARES Act and come back to that. Correct.
The other thing I'll mention is through another grant, a community service block grant, we were able to pretty significantly increase the operating support that we provided to the 3 resource centers, where typically, historically, we provide $10,000 per resource center per year. That's basically, for all intents and purposes, pretty discretionary in nature, and we increased that to $40,000. We added another $30,000 this year through this kind of one-time supplemental appropriation of the community service block grant program. So, we hope that's really been helpful to the resource centers to use as they see fit.
So this is Jamie Stevens. I just was wondering, so on the last one you explained how we're taking it, or how it's being used in the county, but on that CRAP or IRRAP, are we using that, or how's that being implemented in the county?
Sorry, yes, it is just getting up and going now, so we were just contracted in the last week. So we are setting up a web form, so people will be able to apply online. So all the applications will come through Opportunity Council, but working with the resource centers to help make those connections and help guide people to the application and understanding the process and things like that. But so that'll be up and running next month.
One of the great things about this new program, and Department of Commerce put it together in a hurry, but what we're excited about is that they're not only encouraging the grantees, but requiring the grantees to put a fair amount of resource into outreach. So paying for outreach services by organizations that are most likely to come into contact with people who need this help. And so that's just, it's great. It dovetails really well into the system in San Juan County with the resource centers.
So this is Councilman Watson. Debbie, any idea as to what the current need is in San Juan County?
Well, we certainly rely on our resource center and many of you for a lot of that information. We have run through much of the rent assistance that's available much more quickly than we have in the past, I'll say that. So we anticipate that the need is great and that we'll be able to distribute all these dollars. Yeah, I'm hearing from the resource centers at different times, slightly different needs in each smaller community, but yeah, we've been running through it more quickly than usual. I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah, even though there's through October 15th there's a governor mandated eviction moratorium, we don't believe that. To me, that's a bit of a false sense of security, because if people are racking up rent debt, at some point it's going to come home to roost. So we're really excited to be able to provide this assistance to help reduce that debt level.
Well, certainly, we appreciate all your assistance and working with our resource centers. At least I think I can speak for the council on this, but yeah, but you know, I know you guys are doing great work, and we appreciate it. You have been doing great work, and it's good to see that we're continuing, and yep, trying to keep people from getting kicked out of their you know, rentals is always a good program to prevent homelessness. So thank you.
You are entirely welcome.
Mr. Stevens, do you have any questions?
No, I just like echo Bill's remarks. It's great to know, you know, there's world's been moving so fast, and two of the greatest needs have been rental assistance and food assistance, and trying to keep track of all the balls in the air has been kind of difficult. Mark and his group has done a pretty good job, and Tara, our grants manager. But it's good to know these additional programs are coming along. I think it'll be needed as the unemployment runs out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Greg and Debbie, two quick questions. In any of this, is mortgage rental assistance or mortgage assistance allowed, or is this just purely rental assistance?
Not in the sources that I described. It's rent assistance.
Okay, thank you. And I echo what Mr. Watson and Mr. Stevens said. And to Mr. Stevens' point, are any programs outside of what you mentioned today for food assistance or for our food banks that you may anticipate coming? Because we've heard potential shortfalls for the future.
Debbie, what do you think?
I'm not aware of additional food assistance, but it's definitely something we can check with our staff who are more tuned into that area of crisis response and see what could be available for San Juan.
Great, thank you so much. Mark, do you have anything to say? And I appreciate you being the president of the board. You're doing a great job. Is there anything you'd like to bring forward?
Yeah, not at this time. I think I will need to update the list of different sources of funds so that we can kind of keep, as some of you have mentioned, the different sources identified and what's available. So I'll be working to update the various sources of funds and what's available in the county. And so I'll be working with that and have to work with both Greg and Debbie on some of this information to ensure I have proper information in that table going forward.
Happy to help, Mark.
Great. All right. Well, Greg and Debbie, thank you so much. I really appreciate the work the Opportunity Council does to support San Juan County and the work specifically that you and your staff does. So thank you very much for caring about us and helping us out, especially in this time of need. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
All right, our next discussion item, this last action, is the Transportation Improvement Plan, TIP, Annual Construction Plan, ACP, Annual Bridge Report, Annual Marine Report, and to schedule public hearing for September 15th at 9:15. This is a second touch with Colin Huntemer, County Engineer. Colin, looks like you're online.
Colin's here, San Juan County Public Works. Good morning. So before you is some material. You should also be in possession of the transportation program binders, and which will be updated periodically for the rest of the year until we get through these this annual program. On your screen is a copy of the staff report provided to you today. There's 6 items on the agenda for the second touch. I will be going through the first 3, and then I will turn it over to Christine, who is the author of the 3 annual reports, and she will brief you on those 3 items. Of course, this is the second touch. The first touch was back in July, and if time permits and council is interested, after we conclude these 6 items, I also have available today. Sorry, my office is near the airport. Got to close things up. I also have today the this department's equivalent of a docket list, which is my informal worksheet of things that we're tracking, planning related, and I can share that with council too. So jumping into the first thing, the 6-year Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP. Actually, before we get into that, we could review the calendar. So here we are on the 25th of August, the second touch last Friday, and I will cover that briefly. The TIP was presented to the Planning Commission. The only action for today is to schedule the public hearing on the TIP for September 15th. And at the public hearing, the only things that will be back before you to review are these first two items, the TIP and the ACP, and they will come to you in the form of the adopting resolution on September 15th. So on your screen now is the current TIP that was adopted last year, and if you recall, this was presented and we went through each project individually, and I don't plan to do that today. The red strikeouts were projects that were dropped from the program. We had 2 that were completed, the Connector Road and Haven Road improvements. We had another 6 that were moved off the TIP because lack of movement on them, and because we are consolidating our resources behind some other projects. One of the projects moved off the TIP was moved to road operations. That would be the trail project on Lopez, number 19. We also had 2 projects that were, we had 2 projects that were moved up in schedule, Orcas Landing and Hunter Bay, because of needs, and then 2 other projects that were pushed out because of delays, Upper Deer Harbor Road improvements and Beaverton Valley. The only project that was added to the TIP was as shown here on the current TIP, which is number 18, the Deer Harbor Hamlet Pathway. That was the LTAC grant of $70,000 that was awarded to the Deer Harbor Planning Review Committee, who's working with this department on a future extension of the trail west of the Deer Harbor Bridge. So again, summary of where changes to the current TIP, and then this is a draft of the new TIP, which will be held at a public hearing on September 15th. So Planning Commission reviewed both of these materials last Friday. Their charge is to review every item on the TIP for its consistency with the county's comprehensive plan, the transportation element, specifically the goals and policies listed in the plan. Of course, the transportation element is currently being revised, so that adds another dynamic to the discussion. There was no formal recommendations made last Friday. The Planning Commission also gets to review the TIP twice, and at their second meeting they would make any formal recommendations. But if I could summarize the conversation last Friday, it would be around rural character, the Scenic Roads Manual, and standards. So we'll see if there is a more formal recommendation from them the next time they review this.
So, Colin, I thought we eliminated the Scenic Roads Manual and rolled it into our standard code.
No, that might have been something you wanted to do, but the Scenic Road Manual exists in parallel with the Complete Streets Ordinance that Council adopted, I think, in 2015. So when we adopted the Complete Streets Ordinance, we understood that it might have been a modernization of what the rural character and Scenic Roads Manual attempted to do, but we didn't attempt at the time to reconcile both of those, the manual and the ordinance for Complete Streets together. So they both exist.
Okay.
And that's actually an item in the docket, is to take another look at that and see if we can combine them. Okay, draft tips in front of you. Moving on to something you didn't see last time in July, but this is the annual construction program. And again, you'll see these all in resolution format come September. As a reminder, the annual construction program is just more detail of the first year of the TIP. First year of the TIP is next year, 2021. So every one of these projects listed in 2021 gets more detail in the annual construction program, where we break out where we're getting the money, how it's going to be expended. As a reminder, again, the Public Works Department cannot work on a capital project unless it is listed on the annual construction program. So these are the 11 projects slated for capital projects slated for work in 2021. So next, and I wasn't planning to bring it on my screen, but I can. You should have it in your binders. Is the priority array, which is our about 20-year plan. Actually, I will bring it up just so you can see what it looks like. So this is our working list of every project we have, and every capital project we've envisioned for each district, District 1, District 2, and District 3. So as things move on and off the TIP, they don't disappear, we don't lose track of them, they come and go off the priority array. So it's basically 3 levels of progression. You start on the priority array, you move to the 6-year TIP, which is then feeds the annual construction program. So you can review these projects at your leisure, but there hasn't been much change at all on the 20-year plan. I guess to summarize, really the focus right now, if you were to take a look at the TIP, is consolidating efforts around a number of projects that should be familiar to Council. Primarily Prune Alley on Orcas, the flat federal lands access program on Lopez, and on San Juan. It's not listed on this program, but it'll be on the other capital program that you receive through capital facilities, and that would be the Beaverton Valley shop site.
So Colin, those blue arrows, that's just where that's moving to that year?
Correct. Upper Deer Harbor, just as an example, Upper Deer Harbor road improvements. We've taken staff resources and focused on Prune Alley, which is appropriate, and until Prune Alley gets completed somewhere around 2022, 2023, that's when we can reallocate Jesse and myself specifically back to Upper Deer Harbor. So
maybe we'll be out of court by then.
Yeah, and so staff resource needs to move that along through the court process too, right? So just on hold, put it in a box, we sit it in our office. And then green projects, the opposite, accelerating because of conditions on the ground or other priorities. So that's the 6-year draft, next year's program, and then the annual construction program, which gives a financial breakout in more detail. And of course, this obviously feeds into the budget. So that takes care of the first 3 things.
So Colin,
on the staff report here, and unless there's any questions, I will turn it over to Christine.
So Colin, this is Councilman Watson. You're not prepared to talk about Prune Alley yet today?
Christine?
Oops.
Colin, are you hearing Mr. Watson's question?
I don't think he did. So, Colin, this is Councilman Watson. I asked if it seems you're not prepared to talk about Prune Alley today.
You know what? I think he is. Let me see if I can find him. Hang on. We lost you? Yeah, sorry. You want to talk to Mr. Watson? Okay. He wants to know about Prune Alley and talking about it today. Okay. He lost his connection, so I'm gonna talk about the reports, and he'll be right back on.
Okay.
All right. So, good morning, Council.
Good morning.
You have in this world of COVID chaos, you may or may not have your report, but I just wanted to note that the annual reports and the priority array are on the website. So the Public Works website under County Roads has a section where we post all of the annual reports and the transportation planning documents. So those are out there for you and for the public as we head towards the public comment, public hearing. I just wanted to go over the reports just very briefly. The annual bridge report is required by a WAC, and it actually specifies that you'll prepare a bridge report to reflect changes made in the prior year. So we do that report. It is based a lot on the inspections, the bridge inspections that are completed by WATCOM every 2 years. 2019 was an off year. We'll do the bridge inspections again in 2020 in September of this year. And we don't expect to find anything significant in the inspections. We've seen no changes in the bridges. There's no bridge projects on the 6-year tip right now. The annual marine report, because we're kind of unique, we have chosen to do an annual marine report that's similar to the bridge report to provide the same kind of information that the WAC requires for bridges. We produce the same kind of report for marine facilities. And reflecting on the 2019 report, there weren't any new and exciting events. Last year's report, we reported on the fact that Hunter Bay float had disassociated from the pier, and we had to go retrieve it and make some repairs. We had to do some repairs to the West Sound float and Orcas Landing float. So last year was a pretty hard year. The early part of 2019 was a pretty hard year on our floats, and you'll see that in the 6-year tip, we actually have those 3 projects listed in the 6-year tip, and a couple of those have been moved up in timing to make sure that we get them repaired before they have additional serious problems. Questions on the marine report?
Nope.
Okay. So the third report is the annual Complete Streets report. In early 2018, we adopted the Complete Streets program, and that program requires the county engineer to prepare a report. The purpose of that report is to document the progress we're making, and then also to ensure that the Complete Streets principles are being applied. And there's actually pages 5 and 6 of that report talk about each of the projects on the 2020 to 2025 tip, and talk about how the principles of Complete Streets are being applied. The council last year requested that we add a table documenting multimodal improvements that have happened in the past, and keeping kind of a tabular list of the improvements as we make them. So you'll see that we added a table of improvements from 2009 through 2019. And in 2019, the key accomplishments for Complete Streets were the Cattle Point shoulder widening and Orcas Road. I also put in your binder, and we put on the website, the 2020 Public Mooring Buoy Project Report. We asked Jen J to look at identifying, evaluating potential mooring buoy sites around the island. And they've evaluated 44 potential mooring buoy sites. So those are in your book and on the website. Any questions on reports or material in your binder?
Mr. Watson?
Nope, no questions on me.
Mr. Stevens?
No questions.
I appreciate the regular updates.
You bet. I was just looking to see whether Colin is back on in the participant.
And I'm here again.
I think he left the country.
I've signed back in and I can get him.
So, Mr. Watson's question was regarding, were you willing to talk about Prune Alley today?
Sure. Talk about anything. Was there a question, or do you want me to give you a broad update on Prune Alley?
I was simply asking whether you were prepared to discuss Prune Alley today or not, and the challenges you are currently facing.
Sure. So Prune Alley is a very complex project being tackled in 3 separate construction phases. The first phase is planned for next year from Main Street up to Fern Street. Aside from surface improvements, this $4 to $5 million project, half of that money will be buried underground in utility infrastructure, storm drain for the county, but also significant effort from some of the other utilities to move and relocate. The sewer district, the water district, Opauco with their fiber and power, CenturyLink being the major utility holders on Prune Alley. The challenges facing us right now is specifically the coordination effort with both the water and sewer district, who are trying to figure out the best way to tackle this project and secure funding for it. It's possible that the sewer district may be interested in applying for a public facilities finance approving application to help offset their costs for relocating the sewer line. But the details of that are not clear to me today, but I'm working on that this week. But it is a significant undertaking for those utilities, and I think probably the biggest one ever that the sewer district, the relocation effort that the sewer district has ever faced. So it's a challenge. We're there to help and assist with them. Jesse and I have attended several of their district meetings, and we meet now weekly with the sewer district because of the urgency of this project. And there may be a decision for council to make in the future, depending on the outcome of those meetings. Other than that, the surface improvements have largely remained unchanged from when council approved the design. It feels like over a year ago now. So that's progressing nicely, as well as the right-of-way dedication, which includes a component from Erica and DCD regarding parking credits. So those are moving forward.
And Colin, I think it's important to point out that the East Sound Planning Review Committee has done a really good job throughout COVID to work with the public to get some of the accoutrements hammered out of things that they'd like on the road. For example, lighting and pavers and some signage and stuff. So I think they've done a really good job. Public access to provide feedback regarding the road construction.
That's true. Yes. The road and lighting and other, as you put it, Rick, accoutrements to the project. On the county's website, and I believe I'm sharing my screen. Am I sharing my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So this is a conceptual illustrative plan. It's a scroll sheet, so it's just a long horizontal scroll. North being to the right hand here. So the first phase of the project coming from Main Street to Fern Street. And although this illustrative scroll is a few months old, there's been very little change. In fact, I think all the changes they're underground in nature, and they wouldn't even show up on this plan. And this is what the street will look like. So the county's effort is certainly moving forward and on schedule. It's the coordination effort with the utilities, which is the challenge front and center right now. So ultimately, I mean, obviously, we cannot proceed without the other utilities figuring out how to go into detail. This is the gutter line, if you can follow my mouse, on the east side of the road, and the gutter line is where the storm drain collection points need to be. Obviously, that's where the water collects, and it needs to go into an underground storm drain system. And it just, unfortunately, is the location of the pressurized sanitary sewer. So the sanitary sewer needs to find a way to move under their franchise agreement into probably the center of this lane. But again, those discussions are ongoing, and it's a complicated challenge for a small district, certainly.
No changes. Keep moving forward.
So this is the top priority for the department as far as projects on our tip, and Jesse and I are working regularly on this. That's the update for Prune Alley for today.
Mr. Watson, does that address your question, or is there other questions you may have?
Nope, that was fine.
Mr. Stevens?
No, I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Great, thank you. At this point, Colin, anything else you'd like to share before we set a public hearing?
You can set the public hearing. The only thing I was offering council today is a quick review of our quote-unquote docket items for the county roads, but that can also be reviewed at a later meeting, depending on your agenda for today.
How long do you anticipate that?
I could probably do this in less than 10 minutes, and then my goal is to just go over it quickly, and then I can send you this file. It's basically my informal workbook of ideas, and then at least if you wanted to be aware of what we're wrestling with and how we prioritize that, you could reference this Excel file.
Council, is it all right if we continue on with Mr. Huntermer's word plan?
Sure.
All right, go ahead, Colin.
So there's a few categories of engineering docket items. The first one is under right-of-way management. These pertain to road vacations and issues regarding parcels that the road fund owns. Things that are labeled inactive mean things that we're aware of but we're not working on. Things that are on hold means that at least at some point we picked up and started working on it, but we have moved off to focus on other things. And green things that are active mean things that we're working on now. I'm not going to go over things that are inactive, but again, I'll provide this Excel file to you so you can see it. Couple things on hold. We have a right-of-way issue that we look to resolve with the port on Jackson's Beach. It centers around a 1985 interlocal agreement that needs to be updated. If you recall, Opalco installed a solar array on Decatur that exists in the county-wide right-of-way, and we have agreed to a road vacation and a boundary line modification with the three parcels that are involved, and that requires council action. Upper Deer Harbor Road, which Mr. Stevens mentioned earlier, needs action from the PA's office. Waldron Road on the north end, that's the one where the shore access was in dispute and we lost in summary judgment, and it is being appealed. And the Deer Harbor Marina release, the lease expired May 31st. Right now we're in holdover status. I've been to Waldron a number of times over this year, really, to talk about their needs, and certainly there's an interest in renewing this lease, but COVID-related disruptions have really just push us into holdover status. But I expect that this needs to be renewed, or at least an application to be renewed to be brought to council for their approval. A number of other road-related issues that are, just because they're inactive doesn't mean they're not important. Particularly Shaw Island is in desperate need of a county marine facility. There's some deeds on pertaining to Missing Mountain Road when we were talking about the original U-turn, and there was a dedication with some conditions on that. I need to review that to see if further action is required from council. There's a couple of action items on Waldron regarding the road end on North Bay, which is one of the only public access points on the west side, the only one. We need to survey that road, and then there's some congestion circulation problems near the pier. We actually just finished surveying that, and we're probably going to do some improvements to alleviate parking and circulation problems. I think council is familiar with this stormwater dispute on Orcas Road, and then another road vacation possible request I received yesterday. But there's a lot of vacations on here, and at any time you wanted to check to see if the emails you're receiving are on this list. This is just because we receive an email and there's no action on it, the work gets populated on this list. So that's right-of-way management. There's a number of things regarding county code. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of effort moving these forward. The two that I am slowly working on is the parking ordinance, possibly covering Deer Harbor, the park near the bridge, and then also potential parking regulations on Upper Deer Harbor Road and Deer Harbor in general. And Mr. Hughes is familiar with that effort. But there's also a need for parking enforcement on all of our road ends. Currently have, if I open this up, restricted parking zones at a couple of our marine facilities, Islandale Division Number 1, the county leased area in Roach Harbor, and Orcas Village, that's near the ferry terminal. But we have a number of other marine facilities that don't have parking regulations, particularly on obstruction paths on Orcas, which is an unregulated parking lot. And then the Orcas Village Park and Ride also doesn't have any parking regulations, but right now I think that thing's functioning well without those. The Sheriff's Office assists us with removing vehicles once they determine they're abandoned. So this really is focusing on marine facilities and road ends leading to water. There's a lot of other things that we could do with county code. Some of these are just cleaning up. The model traffic ordinance has been inconsistent with state law since 1976. But we are in holdover status on a lot of these things. Another group I have is just planning related things. We have a digitization effort for all of our records here. We have over 100 years of records that we have to keep because this office is an office of records. We get numerous requests sometimes for the old road establishments. We just got another one here on San Juan Island, and so that requires us thumbing through books that are 100 years old, and when we do that, we scan and index them so that the ultimate goal is that this can be a portal open to the public, and when people want to find out information regarding a road or anything else that this office keeps, they can have public access online, hopefully, through a file system that's indexed and sorted. You're probably familiar with Christine and Shannon's effort on the comp plan. Christine's also working on a fire system agreement, and that goes hand in hand with the Beaverton Valley project. Skip over a few of these. We have some eelgrass buoys that we need at all upland, tied to when we installed our marine facility there. We're also looking at opportunities always to get the creosote pile removed from Griffin Bay. The Shoal Bay Pit on Lopez is an interesting one that I'll look to get in front of. I need to coordinate with the county manager on this, but might need council to make a decision regarding the closure of it. It's been inactive for a number of years, but there's some oversight from the feds regarding mine and safety, and I think the best course of action is possibly to close that pit and reclaim it. This is an interesting one on Waldron. We have the county has surplus material to the Waldron community yard, and that contract expires next year. And one of the things we're looking to do over there, because the Waldron community is very interested in possibly seeing this thing continue, so we need to make sure that there is enough material available for us to take care of our roads. And if council wants to surplus more material to the community, I'm not sure if $10 a yard is the appropriate price, but we need to figure something out before this expires next year. I mentioned briefly about parking and obstruction pass, and then we started a little bit to work with the fairgrounds regarding, you recall, the county fairgrounds road on San Juan Island. It's actually a county road, and the fairgrounds has always wanted to complete the sidewalk and master plan vision connecting the building. We do have a draft of a plan together, but because of staffing resources, we shelved that, and because of uncertainty regarding the direction of what we're doing with the parks in particular. There's a couple other items on here that I'm not going to go over today, but you'll see there's some emergent projects. These are things we're tracking in operations, and so if there's something that's not regular O&M material related, but each one of the islands has Mr. Stevens probably is familiar with this one. I believe you had a walkthrough with some county staff on the Lopez Village trails, but those efforts are all tracked here too. So this is the docket. This is where I keep track of everything, and I'm happy to send this to council by email at some point today. I just ask you to consider that this is a working document. It's not refined or polished in any sense, but if you wanted an insight of a brain dump of what we're keeping track of, that's what this is. There you have it.
Thank you.
Colin, if you could please forward that to county manager and council, that would be great. I appreciate all the effort put into tracking projects that are constantly moving in and out of your workflow. So thank you. Mr. Smith, do you have any comments for Colin?
No.
Mr. Watson?
No.
All right. So, Colin, is there anything else before we take a quick vote regarding the public hearing?
Nope, just the public hearing, and then I'm done today, and I'll see you on September 15th. Thank you.
Council, I'd entertain a motion at this point to schedule a public hearing for September 15th at 9:15 for the TIP and the ACP.
Mr. Chair, I move we schedule a public hearing for September 15th at 9:15 a.m. For presentation of the TIP and annual construction plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to set up and schedule a public hearing for September 15 at 9:15 a.m. in Friday Harbor for approval of the transportation improvement plan and the annual construction plan. Any other comments or questions?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Colin, I just want to thank you again. This is a really great presentation, you and Christine. A lot of information here, and I like the binder with all the projects, so thank you. Our next discussion item is voluntary stewardship program update with Mike Ramsey, Executive Director of the San Juan Island Conservation District. Mike, are you on the phone still?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. And I want to thank you very much. I know you've been on since the beginning, so I appreciate your patience for us getting through the agenda. It's kind of a long day, so thank you very much.
Oh yeah, no problem. I saw my place on the agenda, but you've done a great job plowing through the agenda. Yes, well, thank you, Council, and thanks for the opportunity to give you an update on the voluntary stewardship program. Just a quick overview. It was a program that was adopted by the legislature in 2011 as part of the Growth Management Act as a voluntary way to balance critical areas management while maintaining agricultural viability. San Juan County opted into the voluntary stewardship program in 2012, and we published our work plan in 2018. we've been in the implementation phase ever since. The Washington State Conservation Commission is the agency that manages VSP. And so, as you likely know, San Juan County contracts with the commission and then contracts with the Conservation District here to implement the program. And so now we're currently under contract with you for the 2019-21 biennial period for $240,000, which we share with you, the county. The big push for our contract right now, the big deliverable, is the individual stewardship plans. Individual stewardship plans are more commonly known as farm plans, which the district does to a standard of the Natural Resource Conservation Service. And but ISPs integrate into the planning process the critical areas and any objectives the landowners, the producers can do to improve and maintain critical areas. We're a little over halfway done with the biennium, halfway through it, and we've accomplished or completed 17 individual stewardship plans. And additionally, another element of the contract period was the stewardship, the voluntary stewardship checklist, which is a pre-planning document that is 13 pages long, but it gives us an understanding. The producers fill it out, and it has the producers' goals, their practices, and their current conditions. They identify for us where in the watershed they are. I think that helps them to understand their place in the landscape and the critical areas that are under their management. And it's been well received. We have a standing work group that approved that checklist, and so far so good. It is a long document, but they don't have to. There's many sections that may not apply to them that they just don't have to complete. But it certainly gives us a good idea of where we're headed with planning their farm. And then another big element we're just now preparing for is the 5-year monitoring report. That's due on December 21st of this year, and so now we're in the phase of compiling the data for that report. The commission has promised us a online template for the contents of the report, but that hasn't been made available yet, so hopefully they get there fairly soon. Another element of the 5-year monitoring report, back in 2015, we worked with the WSU Social and Economic Sciences Research Center to conduct an agriculture viability survey for the county. And they've given us we've received the final report back in 2016, and we're working with them again on the ag viability survey for this year. So that should be coming out to the producers relatively shortly, next month. And we've been working with the Ag Guild and Agricultural Resources Committee on the survey, and just had some minor updates, and also we added some demographic questions like for minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, so that we have a better handle on our community, our farming communities, because that helps us gain more funding for cost share projects and ways to improve critical areas management. And then, we've had our quarterly work group meetings, and we've been doing it just like this, online via Zoom. We have a Zoom account, and those have been going well. There is a lot of interest for us to individual stewardship planning process is a first come first served basis. The work group would like us to focus on priority watersheds and do more outreach. So we're going to integrate that into the program as well. And places like False Bay, Crow Valley, Davis Bay on Lopez, those are all really critical watersheds, and we want to maintain the water quality there in those critical areas. And I've also been talking with Kyle Dodd too a little bit about I want to make part of the planning process that we asked for the producers to if they would be willing to monitor their well use or well water use, since the whole county is a critical aquifer area. So lots of really good developments going on, although we haven't had the producers jumping forward to do that monitoring, but we'll keep asking. And we're still, in terms of the work group, we're still looking for new members, producers particularly, and it's been challenging to compel the tribal members to attend the meeting. So we're kind of looking for insights there to get more tribal participation. But most of all, things have been going well, and we're moving ahead. I'm at the point where if you have any questions, I'm ready.
Mr. Stevens?
I don't have any questions.
Mr.
Well, I do. I'm sorry. I have one. Mike, what's the hesitancy on the well monitor, or on the well, tracking?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jamie. I think people are just a little more apprehensive about perhaps losing their, if they're not using enough, there's the possibility they could lose their water right. And just, I think we'll find people that will be willing to do that. And I know Kyle, I don't want to steal his thunder, but he's hoping to generate an online reporting system. So that would make it easy, and it should be confidential. And I think that's another piece of people's hesitancy. They're worried about their confidentiality. But I think if we develop a program that assures them that they have confidentiality, and it just rolls up into a larger data platform, that people would be more willing to do it. I would be willing to do it. But anyway, that I think is it.
Thanks.
Mr. Watson?
No questions or comments this time. I just appreciate the work that you're doing there, Mike.
Thank you, Bill. Likewise.
Yeah, Mike, thank you for the work and for the presentation. One quick question also on the water monitoring. At some point, it would be really interesting to get an idea of what the total water volume that we have in storage and what the replenishment rate is. If you're able to get some of this information from VSP partners, is that something you would consider sharing with the different water systems around the county, so we can better pull together maybe a volume of what we have?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, and I think we're all still working from that 2002 report, which is good on our aquifer storage areas, but understanding use and its effect on the storage is critical, as we all know. So we would really willingly share and work together with the county on that.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions from Mike or anyone else?
No, not me.
All right, well, Mike, thank you for the work, and just let us know when you want to come back and give us another update as if anything dramatically changes. But thank you so much for your efforts, and this is a really important program. So thank you very much.
Great. I really appreciate the council's support. We'll be back.
All right, thanks. Our next discussion action is Orcas Landing Water System Franchise Agreement. We have Mike Thomas here with the goal to schedule a public hearing for Tuesday, September 29th. Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, Council. So in front of you is a draft ordinance granting what we call a non-exclusive franchise agreement for Orcas Landing, Inc. Just as far as process goes, the ordinance requires 3 touches, so I'll do a brief, but we'll ask council to set a public hearing for August 29th, which will be the second touch, and then, of course, a third touch for final action on the ordinance. So this is kind of a unique franchise agreement in that it has a history that goes back to 2017, and it relates to the county's Park and Ride project. So at that time, to move the Park and Ride project forward and to deal with the plethora of utilities in and around the Park and Ride project, San Juan County entered into a memorandum of agreement, or understanding rather, with OLI regarding the location of their water lines. And so the MOU is really the origin and kind of the backbone for developing the franchise agreement. So at that time, then Public Works Director Brian Vincent created this agreement, the MOU with OLI. And so there's a number of provisions in there that sets forth what the parties are supposed to do as it relates to moving utilities and the costs associated with that to, again, perfect the Park and Ride project. There were some other things that were included in there regarding the term of a franchise agreement. And let me back up for a second. So we entered into, the county entered into the MOU as an expedient way to come to agreement with OLI on actions within the public right-of-way. So this was perceived then as a faster approach to dealing with the on-the-ground issues related to the Park and Ride than taking a timeout and developing a full franchise agreement. So this was an interim step to doing the franchise agreement that we're talking about today. So there were some provisions in here that are kind of unique, and so what we tried to do is take the spirit of the MOU and kind of normalize that and put that into a franchise agreement. So there are some things that were in the MOU that we couldn't do, and there are some things that we had further discussion on and found a pathway to honor what was in the MOU into the form of franchise agreement. So there's it is our standard form of franchise agreement, and there's a couple exceptions or different approaches to that. So let me go through that now. So one of the things you'll see in the MOU was an agreement to do a 50-year franchise agreement. The county actually can't grant a 50-year franchise agreement. Per our charter, franchise agreements can be no longer than 25 years. Our standard form of franchise agreement has a 5-year renewable approach. So 25 years is what you see in here. Frankly, franchise agreements are very long-term. You're talking about infrastructure that shouldn't really change except for projects. So we're fine with 25 years. There was clarity regarding location of franchisees' infrastructure, and so you'll see that in Exhibit A. It was important to OLI that there was a reflection of where their infrastructure is. Currently, there's quite a bit of discussion regarding relocation. So you'll see in Section 8.4C that it says if there's a circumstance where we have a project and we ask OLI to move their facilities, it's on them. If we come back within a 5-year period and ask them to move it again, then the county would have to bear the cost of that. And so that's a very unique arrangement that's not found in the other franchise agreements, but is found in this version. There was some discussion about insurance, and OLI has satisfied our insurance requirement. There was also a lot of discussion about performance. So what happens when OLI or any franchisee does work within the public right-of-way? What is needed from the county standpoint so that we are protected in case their project goes wrong and damages our street? So in a standard form of franchise agreement, they're required to have a bond. But the bond is kind of problematic in the sense, if you're an entity and you go get a bond just to get a bond, it's hard to get a bond because it's so generalized. And so OLI as an entity carries insurance, so the county would be able to go after their insurance if there was an issue, and that anyone that OLI hires to do work within the right-of-way, any contractor, has to be licensed and bonded pursuant to state L&I. So in this agreement, we feel like we're okay and protected, again, because we have two forms of insurance that we could go after, so both OLIs and the contractor. So we feel like that gives us protection. Other than those discussion points, it's a relatively standard form of franchise agreement. So some of these took a while to resolve, but there are different approaches. In a franchise agreement, the thing that I wanted to make sure of is that whatever we agree to is that the county has protection and is insulated from any occurrence within the public right-of-way. So a lot of history to this, but again, the MOU was really used as the backbone to try to come up with an agreement that was acceptable to OLI, but also acceptable to the county. So with that brief overview, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Mr. Watson, do you have any questions?
I do. So the relocation term, item C in your memo. So how's this set precedent for other utility providers in the right-of-way?
It wouldn't set a precedent to existing ones. It would only perhaps come into question when we renew a franchise agreement and another party asking for that same consideration.
That's my point.
Yes.
So it is setting precedent, and therefore we would probably not be able to deny another franchise who wants the same clause.
Well, I would say that there's some negotiation with each of these franchise agreements. So if someone could ask for that, we wouldn't necessarily have to grant that, but it does potentially certainly open the door to that discussion.
Right. And I mean, current law states that we can ask for franchisees to relocate their underground infrastructure anytime we need it, right?
I'm sorry, Mr. Watson. The first part of I think your statement got cut off.
Okay. So right now, state law provides for our ability to request utility movement at any time, right?
Correct.
In the right-of-way?
Yes.
So this is also then sort of tying our hands. Well, I guess we can still request it. We just have to pay for it. All right, and then my final question is along the same similar thing. You said that getting a performance bond is cumbersome or troubling or problematic, and yet again, all our other franchisees have this requirement, do they not?
Yeah. So there's frankly an internal discussion. We have traditionally asked a number of things from a franchisee. So one is just to have a bond. Two, have insurance, and three, post a performance bond when someone does work within the right-of-way, and then any contractor would have to be licensed and bonded to do work, basically to do work in general, but to work on a public project. So you basically have four forms of insurance, if you will. Right. So I think it's, and this is part of our internal discussion, I think some of that is overkill and has been problematic for franchisees just to go get a bond to get a bond. So I don't think you need to hold a bond just because you have a franchise agreement with the county. You have insurance, the performance bond, is we require a $5,000 performance bond if someone does work. Well, that's an arbitrary number, which may have no relationship to the project cost. So really, if the entity has insurance, then great. If there's an issue, we can go after their insurance, and then the contractor has to be insured. So I think we don't need four, we need two.
So then, if you're clearly recommending that these 5 items be approved for this franchise, would you suggest that these 5 items should roll into our standard franchise agreement?
I would say that yes. I think that, and this I've talked to both Colin and Christine about. Definitely on what I just articulated on the insurance and bond and performance bond. That stuff I think we need to, or could certainly change to make it streamlined and easier for franchisees to get that. And frankly, I think it would be easier to probably cement a number of franchise agreements that we need but don't have at this time. I think the only thing, and you already touched upon this, Mr. Watson, is the 5-year provision. It's unlikely that we would tell someone to move their utilities and then come back 5 years later and ask them to move it again in that same location. So I don't feel like there's much exposure there, but it is a very unique ask that we don't find in the other franchise agreements.
Okay. All right, I'm done.
Mr. Stevens?
No, that was going to be my question. What would you ever foresee that we didn't think through enough to have come back within 5 years and ask somebody to move it again?
Okay. So Council, Richard Freilich is the president of OLI, and he is on the line. Do you mind if I see if he has any questions or comments?
Fine.
Mr. Freilich, if you have anything you'd like to say at this point, here's an opportunity. Nothing is needed if you do not want to, but here's a chance if you'd like. You need to unmute. Mr. Freilich?
Yes, this is Richard Freilich. Am I still on?
Yep.
You still hearing me?
We got you.
I would just have a couple of comments. Sort of was unexpected that I would be doing it at this time. I thought it would be at the hearing, but nevertheless, let me just talk a little bit about the 5-year relocation provision. Well, that is something that is not in standard form of the county's franchise agreement. CRAB does offer a prototype franchise agreement. The County Road Board does offer a prototype franchise agreement, and it's the one fashioned after. I'm forgetting the county, but anyhow, it's Garrison. I'm just sure. Anyhow, and they do have that provision in there. So the language that is chosen is the same language that is in that prototype that's provided by CRAB. So it's not a totally unknown request. Let me see here. I think that's it for now. I would need to get my thoughts in a little more organized fashion and present them at the hearing. But I'm very pleased that this franchise agreement is finally coming in front of the county council. It's been a long time in coming, and I'm very pleased that we were able to cooperate with the county and not get in the way of completing the Park and Ride project, which has been a tremendous addition for the folks here on Orcas Island. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Freilich. Mr. Thomas, can I ask you a process question?
Yeah.
Is it possible that we have the second touch on 9/15 and then the public hearing on the 29th? And we don't really need to do anything on the second touch unless something changes, which I don't anticipate it will. But then we can have that second touch, and then the third touch on 9/29 would allow us to make a decision or continue on the public hearing.
I'm sorry. So public hearing on 8/29, and then final action on 9/15.
No, sorry, I don't think we can do a public hearing that. Can we do a public hearing by the 15th?
Yes, September 15th?
Yes.
Yes, we could, but we won't have any meetings in between now and.
Okay, so yeah, because we have the public hearing on our agenda set for the 29th. So I was.
Actually, it's September 29th is the public hearing?
Yep.
Yeah. The 29th of August. We don't have a meeting on the 15th. So I was just saying we do a second touch on 9/15 and have the public hearing on 9/29. That was my suggestion.
That's fine by me.
Is that all right, Council?
Yeah, but we are meeting on 9/8. Don't forget.
No. After Labor Day, Mr. White.
I'm sorry. We're not meeting on 9/8. Okay, that's right.
It's our one no meet week this summer.
That's right. But that's why the date was in my head, because I had to verify that we were not meeting on the 8th.
All right, so it's okay with Council. Ingrid will have a second touch on 9/15 on this subject, please. And then I would entertain a motion for a public hearing for Tuesday, the September 29th.
Mr. Chair, I move we schedule a public hearing for Tuesday, September 29th, 2020 at 9:15 a.m. For the topic of Orcas Landing Water System Franchise Agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to set a public hearing for Tuesday, September 29th at 9:15 a.m. in Freddie Harbor for approval of the Orcas Landing Water System Franchise Agreement. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries 3-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Freilich. Mr. Thomas, so item 10, the next item is the discussion action approve Economic Development Council's EDC CARES Act funding grant agreement. Can we do that in about 18 weeks, do you think?
Yeah, I think you should ask Ms. Anderson how much time she needs, because she's going to be walking council through the new form of agreement and associated documents.
This is Tara. I believe that we could do it that quickly.
And it doesn't have to be exactly 18 minutes. I was just, do we want to take a break for lunch or go through this now? So how about we go through this now?
I think that's a great idea.
All right, excellent. So if you would like to start, that'd be great.
So this is Tara Anderson, San Juan County Senior Budget Analyst and EOC Finance and Admin Section Chief. Staff completed a technical review and a legal review as to form of the agreement between the county and the EDC for the creation and execution of the Small Business Relief Grant Fund. This is the pass-through of federal CARES Act money to support small business relief. Changes since Council's review on August 11th include correcting the form of this vendor from a vendor agreement to a federal sub-recipient contract, amending the language to align with our CARES agreement, inclusion of a notice of funding available, updating allowable costs, including the CARES Act and contract itself as an addendum to the agreement, some revised scope of work to meet our CARES Act obligations, updating the allowable cost descriptions to match the language that was reviewed by our project manager at the Department of Commerce, and creation of an invoice voucher and addition of payment of terms. I don't believe there's been any changes to council's intent or significant changes to the process. We are hoping that this would represent the final changes for your approval so that the project could be launched with a start date of September 1st as a new timeline. I can answer any questions as to those changes for you.
Mr. Watson?
No questions.
Mr. Stevens?
No, I don't have any questions either. I read through it all yesterday and it felt a lot more, it felt very tidied up.
Yep.
I don't have any questions either. Ms. Anderson, I really appreciate the work you've put, and I think Peter has been helpful as well in your department in putting this together. And
I do have one area that we could use a little bit of guidance on. We want to make sure that we have really clear priorities for the selection process. Of course, we want it to be very straightforward on who's eligible for federal money and who doesn't. Through some of the feedback that the EDC has received from council in the past, they did make some recommendations on that criteria that we'd like to include as we launch this final agreement. I'd like to hand it off to Peter Harrison, who's the county's liaison to the EDC, to just brief you real quickly on what those are and make sure that they're still in alignment with what council's priorities are for the funding. Of course, before I do that, I just want to be really clear, the eligibility has not changed, and so applicants would still need to be a small business whose primary place of business is here in San Juan County, employing between 1 and 10 people, not including the business owner, have been in operation for at least 1 year, and have been in operation on March 13th, which was when San Juan County declared the state of emergency. They also would need to be operating in compliance with the Safe Start Washington business, have not already received assistance through a number of grants, including the U.S. Chamber of Small Commerce Foundation Safe Small Business Grant, Washington State Department of Commerce of Working Washington Small Business Grant, the Town of Friday Harbor Rental Assistance Grant, or the EDC Valmark Back to Business Grant programs. If individual businesses have already received those, they would not be eligible to apply. And of course, they need to be in good standing with all federal, state, and local taxing authorities. Even with those eligibility requirements on our businesses, we believe that we still will have a need that outmatches what we have available to give. That's when that additional judging criteria will come into play, and the priorities from you as a governing body is important. So I'd like to hand that over, if it's okay with you, to Peter Harrison, who is with me on the EDC Finance and Admin team and acting as the county's liaison to the EDC.
Please. Hello, Peter.
So this is Peter Harrison. Just to introduce myself briefly, I've been an employee here for almost a year now, since last October. I'm originally employed through the DCD office, but I'm on loan to the auditor's office here until the end of the year to assist with these grant programs. Like Tara mentioned, we wanted to verify with you that the criteria within the grant are in line with the council's intentions for the judging priorities, and I have 5 criteria I'd like to run through with you right now. The first one is impact to closure. How has the business been affected by the mandatory COVID-19 closure? Providing essential services, how the business supports the community and other businesses by providing essential service or volunteerism. Living wage, how does that average salary for the business compare to the county median? That they have a solid financial track record to indicate long-term viability, and that the award will make a meaningful difference to the business and the community. And I just want to verify with you that these criteria are in alignment with your intentions, and these are based on previous discussions the auditor's office has had with you.
Peter, this is Jamie. So is this in addition to, or is this the basic intention versus what Tara just went through about having not received other forms of help?
So this is in addition to, and these are the judging priorities proposed by the EDC for evaluating and scoring the applicants.
Thank you. That clarifies that.
Welcome.
So, Peter, this is Councilman Watson. Any prioritization of for-profit relative to non-profit?
No, not at this time.
I don't believe there's any thing that notes that a nonprofit would be eligible. This is intended for small businesses that are for-profit businesses.
Okay, so Tara, did you just say that nonprofits would not qualify?
I believe that's in the language of the contract. We can certainly change that if you have a different priority.
So I don't know what council's thought is, but I would certainly prioritize for-profit over the non-profits. As far as an additional criteria in your list, once the applicant gets through I'll call it the federal, are you qualified for the program criteria that Tara listed, then as we rank the priority of applicants in our 5 or 6 secondary criteria, I would prioritize for-profits above non-profits.
Okay, thank you.
I would agree with Councilmember Watson. I mean, I thought that in my mind, council set aside this money for for-profit businesses. I think the nonprofits, as much as they need money, they've gotten a lot of grants so far.
And council, in the contract itself, it does specify that these are for for-profits, so it's probably not necessary to include that because they would be excluded.
Okay.
Council, can I ask a clarifying question? I thought I heard 2 different things. So, Mr. Watson, were you saying that you wanted to include nonprofits, but have a for-profit as a priority, or are you saying for-profit only?
Well, I mean, my prior understanding to Tara just clarifying that right now the contract precludes or specifies it's got to be for-profit. So I'm not suggesting that we change that we leave it as for-profit, and based on their assessment, we'll have more than sufficient applicants to consume the money available.
Great. And Mr. Stevens, you agree with that statement, correct?
Right.
Okay. I don't have any questions. I appreciate the work. Is there anything else from Ms. Anderson or Peter?
No. So do we have to take a motion on this to approve, or?
Well, sorry, I was just asking if staff had any other questions.
Nope.
We do not have any other questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your work. I would entertain a motion for approval at this point.
Mr. Chair, I move we I move we approve the Economic Development Council EDC CARES Act funding grant agreement as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Economic Development Council EDC CARES Act funding grant agreement as presented. Any questions or comments? Without seeing any, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you very much for all of your work, everyone. All right, it is 11:53. Is it all right if we take a break until 1 o'clock for lunch?
Good for me.
All right, so we will go into recess at 11:53 and be back at 1 p.m. Thank you very much.